But uh, it is sad also because as I was attending this seminar, I just came to know that 9 more people in my vicinity have tested positive for coronavirus. So we are having a lot of, you know, lot of infection happening here around this place, particularly in Jalandhar. It is a hot spot. So it was something which uh, is really deeply concerning me at the moment, and I'm sure I can see that the whole world is concerned about it. It is something very serious, and it is something that we need to not only talk about, but also we need to understand things, and we have to understand our role as teachers, as educators, and we also have to now understand the way the things are going to change for us as teachers. Because while going through the news, uh, I just came to know that the things may not, be as good as we are wishing them to be, because uh, the WHO says that we may have to live with this coronavirus now. So I am going to talk about our role in the changed scenario. I would, Sarita ji, namaskar. It is a pleasure seeing you. And what makes me emotional is also the fact that I love Nepal. And whenever the roads are open, the airways are open, I would love to visit Nepal, and I would love you guys to come over to India. I should be allowed to share screen now. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to talk about. Yeah, I should. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to talk about English classes post COVID 19, building a perspective and facing the challenges. Uh, I don't know how the other parts of the world are at the moment doing as far as COVID is concerned, but India is in pretty bad shape, and so are most of the countries. We are in lockdown, a complete lockdown. It is our 51st day of lockdown here, and it's almost curfew like thing, and this is how our classrooms look at the moment. Uh, Completely, vacant. Uh, I would just, just share with you that our times are difficult. They are different. We are in a living in a global village, sharing global problems, sharing global trade, sharing global knowledge, and we are facing something called the climate change. Last time when I came to Nepal in the NELTA conference, regional conference, I talked about climate change and integrating climate change into teaching of English. And at that time, I was not, nobody was aware of what is going to happen. And another thing which has connected all of us around the world is this pandemic called COVID 19, the coronavirus. And we are finding ourselves connected through the virtual world. That is a blessing at this moment, that at least we can connect, at least we can talk to each other, at least we can share our knowledge, our understanding. Just a little while ago, Motikala ma'am shared a wonderful discourse on, on Foster's, on Dr. Foster's, and it was such a treat listening to her. Uh, as we are seeing that the new normal, the things that have become the new normal are the virtual reality, the augmented reality, the mixed reality, or the extended reality. Now, these are the fields of new generation information and communications technology, which feature large application space, and they are they have a huge industrial potential, and they have wide technical span, and have significantly contributed towards our attempts in combating what we term as COVID-19. The new normal is also work from home, what we are doing, most of us. It is also distance learning. It is home based fitness. It is immersive entertainment. And it is networked social interactivity. So, all these things have become the new normal, and we have to sync all these realities into our mind. We have to soak in them. We have to understand them, that now this is the reality. Uh, because why is it that we need to change our perspective of looking at things? Why do we need a new perspective? Is because uh, Dr. Michael J. Ryan, the WHO executive director, he declared that pandemic may not end and we may have to live with it. Now, living with it uh, would mean changing a lot. Uh, it is not something, when the lockdown began, I was, it was just like we thought it would be 7 days, 8 days, 10 days, maybe 15 days, 20 days, 1 month. And when the things are now settling down, and we are in a way accepting that uh, things are not as simple or as easy as they look, we are realizing that we have to live with something we are not used to. It's something very, very different kind of life that we will have to now reinvent for ourselves. Particularly for ourselves, because as educators, as teachers, as the people who are going to teach the young generation, we first have to let these things sink into our mind, that this is the reality. And I'm saying it because I'm seeing it every day around myself. uh, it is extremely different from the kind of reality that we have lived with. Now, there are these experts who are predicting certain things about geopolitics. The things have changed. The East has responded in far more deftly to the epidemic than the West, and we have seen that how people in Italy, people in Europe, people in America, and have suffered more uh, than the people in our part of the world. We have taken it more seriously. We have reacted to it in a more proactive manner than the so-called uh, you know I would say that we always thought that West was very way ahead of us, but we just realized that things are a bit different. Now, this will accelerate the gravitational shift of power from West to East. It is very important for us to understand this at this point of time, because we are teaching English, and up till now, we had been teaching this language from the point of view of sending our students to the outer world and becoming part of the Western world. Now maybe we are going to the shift is going to be like this, that we want to learn this language, or we want to teach this language to our children, because the people will now look towards East. So uh, though the purpose is communication, but there is a shift. Another very, very important thing, uh, it is hardly a prediction, it is a reality, and we see it all around ourselves. It is climate change. uh, COVID-19 basically is the first properly global trans-sectoral crisis that we have faced. Uh, and it will change the relationship of the various nations uh, with climate change by forcing the countries to cooperate uh, for a better world. Unless and until we cooperate with each other, we will not be able to survive. This reminds me of a very, very interesting essay by E.M. Foster, in which I think it is called Tolerance, where he talked about a world. he was talking about reinventing or recreating or recreating a new world after World War II. And he said that the only thing that we need is tolerance. Now, here also, as nations, we have to think in a different way, in less hostile manner towards those cultures, towards those societies, towards those nations that we are not very friendly with. Uh, then another very important thing, prediction that the experts have made is related to healthcare. Uh, of course, uh, the leaning is towards the left, and which is like the world is at the moment replete with what we term as the rightist ideology, and the clash of both the sides will be interesting to watch. We are seeing it these days, what is happening in America. And the current capitalist and industrial complex may unwind uh, via the failed state of healthcare. People will now increasingly demand that the health system offers the fundamentals to everyone. And the universal basic income may still be far, but universal healthcare, I'm sure, is certainly not. Another change would be in manufacturing. The fragile dependency on the East for cheap labor will increase. Western local manufacturing schemes alongside the robotics innovations is going to be there. The handmade luxury market will be there. And as it was the epicenter of dissemination in France and Italy after the virus being carried as a result of intense family visits during the Chinese New Year, if you remember that. Now, locally crafted will be the new niche, because France and Italy, Italy particularly, they said that they got the virus because a lot of people were traveling around that time from China to uh, Italy. And now the new thing would be the handmade luxury. So when the manufacturing and the trade changes, uh, I think a lot of dynamics will change as far as the economy is concerned, world economy is concerned. Then social bonding is going to change, and people will realize that uh, you know that the transactional relationships via digital platforms, it fails the litmus test of crisis, as they say. In return, people will invest in deeper and more meaningful relationships. And digital tools will enhance that and augment that authentic communication in intimate circles. That is the kind of change that people are looking at. They are envisaging it. Then there will be freelancers and the gig economy. The sense of security will kick in as emerging value in a world of uncertainty, because uh, this is what happened. Those of us who have already read T.S. Eliot, and we know that how uncertainty uh, charges us, and there would be talent will also be in demand. Uh, Next point, this is the work. When all the madness that is related to this will subside, office spaces will be different, and they will transform faster from fixed to kind of fluid space, and they will further resemble fluid architectural typologies such as hotel lobbies, cafes, bars, and libraries. Meanwhile, digital collaboration spaces that deploy more affordances from the physical world will spread. So work from home kind of thing will be there, and game designers will crack the code of some awkward Zoom hangout interactions to build something better. This is the kind of interaction that we are having in the in May 2020 today. Probably May 2021 will have a different kind of an interaction. I might walk into your room, or you might walk into my area. So something big is going to happen in this regard also. Uh, then public spaces will be, there's going to be a change in the public spaces also. The rural personal radius of hand waving kind of thing versus handshake. And of course, Nepal and India have a very wonderful way of salutation, that is namaste. and it is already taking the world along with it. uh, it will become the new urban form. And form factors will adjust, especially in the West, to a demand for larger personal areas in public spaces. And then there will be, UV lights would be a part of, the whole system, where they will be cleansing the places with the UV lights. Now, that was one aspect of it, but my major focus today is on education. How is education going to get affected? Jalandhar, again, I would like to share with you, Punjab particularly, a lot of students had gone abroad to study. A lot of students go from this place to America and to Canada and to Australia to study abroad. You would be surprised to know that when this pandemic began, we had as many as 1 lakh students, 1 lakh people returning from these countries to back home, to Punjab, and that's how we got the highest rate of infections also. Uh, Education, there will be decline in international mobility. It is very much clear that, of course, there is. Uh, International visiting professors, they could teach their courses online, continuing to provide some internationalization at home. And once the travel bans are lifted, in the medium term, student mobility will resume, as it has so much become the DNA of the contemporary higher education. But I would also like to add here that I had, some of my friends, their children were studying at Berkeley. So they have come back, and their classmates have filed cases against the university, because they said that we came to this university for the complete campus experience. Now, this study that I'm going to quote also matches what I have heard, the students talking about. There's this study portal survey. 40% of international students are considering changing their study abroad plans due to current crisis. Uh, Here, every year, lakhs of students, they go abroad, but now they are changing their plans, and I'm sure the same would be happening in Nepal also, and in other countries also, because if the West is not accepting students, if they are not opening their international borders, I'm sure that the students are going to be there. So that outflux of students that these countries were facing is going to change, and that changes a lot of things also back home. I'll come to that in the due course of my presentation. Then there's this Eduvantis survey. It was carried out amongst the United States business schools in the last week of March 2020. 93% of the 46 responding business school deans said, that they believe that the current crisis would accelerate the closure of business schools. Up to 10%, more than quarter believe that the rate will increase by more than 10%. So even abroad, even in America, they are going to, face this crisis. Then online provisions, they uh, it is less attractive to the students. Just as I said that uh, I have personally met the students who say that we do not want to uh, pay the fee, rather they are suing those big universities, because they said that we came here for the full campus experience. It is like face-to-face classes, participating in co-curricular activities, building a network with peers and relationship with faculty, which was a major concern. Now, all these factors of participating in co-curricular activities and building a network with peers and relationship with faculty, we have to underline these factors as something that everybody wants. It is something that the students want from us. uh, it is their major concern. So when we shift, we'll understand that what kind of world our children want, and what is it that we should focus on when we are uh, moving towards a world which is based on social distancing and 25% or 35% of online education also. So these are the things which should not be compromised, or we'll have to create new portals, or we'll have to create new ways and means of creating these kind of relationships. And these are the sources from where I took this information. uh, uh, Next is like, where exactly, are we uh, heading? Sorry. What was happening before the COVID-19 times? In 2018, the Observatory on Borderless Education, they reported that online education accounted only for 15% of a sample educational market share. That online was very uneven and hard to track. I I would say that in our countries, particularly the third world countries like India, Nepal, and other countries, online education is not the end thing. It is like is something we substantiate our classroom teaching with. It is not a substitute of our classroom teaching. We used ICT for enhancing that experience of classroom teaching. We used ICT for a different purpose. But to use ICT to totally substitute, the teacher, the presence of the teacher in the class, and to is a very different thing from what it was in the pre-crisis market. You know, at a global level for more flexible and blended forms of lifelong learning beyond initial education in order to address the need to upskill and reskill workers for the digital economy. Of course, this digitalization, and of course, our Prime Minister also talked about the digital India. This digitalization was taking place, but at a very, very slow pace. The demand for the personalized courses and the learning paths and the customized learning experiences was also increasing. Now there are three post-pandemic predictions that have been made by Joshua Kim. According to him, the the blended learning will dramatically increase. Now, the remote teaching and learning efforts that all our professors and students are now engaged in do not resemble what we think of as traditional online education. Quality online learning programs are high input operations. That the rapid shift to remote learning will tarnish the reputation of online education. Because we were not substituting. The biggest future benefits of virtual instruction will come once we come back to our classrooms, if at all we do. Uh, because the necessity of teaching and learning with asynchronous benefits. How? Uh, when these methods are layered into face-to-face instruction, we will come back from COVID-19 with a much more widely shared understanding that digital tools are actually complements, not substitutes for the intimacy and immediacy of face-to-face learning. Then residential courses will be better for practice that professors have received in moving content online, as precious classroom time will then be devoted to discussions. And I hope that that time really comes soon. Uh, then prediction number two that Joshua has made is that the online education will be strategic priority at every institution. It's something very interesting. Very few colleges and universities were doing absolutely nothing with online education. Everybody was doing a little bit in the pre-COVID times also. There was that e-learning management systems, ELMS as we call them, and there was a wide variation, however, in degree uh, to which the online education was central to an institution's strategic planning. This will change after COVID 19. In the future, every president, provost, dean, or trustee will understand that online education is not only a potential source for new revenues, but it is a of core importance to every school's plan for institutional resilience and academic continuity. Because if we are moving into the climate change, the way we are facing problems, we should be prepared for any kind of, as the scientists are saying, that it is just a trailer, picture abhi baki hai, those kind of things. So we are probably heading towards bad time. I'm not being apocalyptic in my discourse, but I'm just saying that online education will be seen as something, as a core area. This post pandemic understanding will change how schools plan, colleges plan, or manage and fund online education. Gone will be the days when individual schools with the university will be able to go down or their own way with online education. Previously decentralized and distributed will now be centralized, and management of online learning will be integrated into existing academic leadership structures and procedures. Prediction number 3: existing and potential online program management partnerships will be rethought. Now, you see, there are many institutions like ours also. We had also done a kind of a partnership with these online teaching. It is that the teaching and learning are core capabilities of every single institution of higher education. Schools and colleges that invested in their learning design resources by both hiring instructional designers and by reorganizing campus learning organizations into integrated units, uh, we were able to manage relatively efficiently the transition to COVID-19 required remote teaching and learning. Now, we suspect that those schools that are dependent on online program management providers to run online programs had a harder time. But then the fact is that they have more access to the digital advertising. So we will have to redefine our relationship with the online program management partnerships, which are professionals. Uh, Now, the points to ponder are that coronavirus related disruption can give educators time to rethink the sector. Technology has stepped into the breach and will continue to play a key role. And in a world where knowledge is a mouse click away, the role of educator will also change. Who is our target audience now? Now, is a very interesting nomenclature given to this. This is Generation Z and Generation Alpha. So Generation Z is, they are about now the oldest of whom are about 25 years old. They have grown up in totally globalized world, and they reflect on their education as a result of truly global pandemic, because many of them have suffered, are facing cancelled exams, sporting events, and even graduation. And this generation is defined by technology, where the terms FOBA, fear of being alone, and FOMO, the fear of missing out, express their desire for instant communication and feedback, affected through apps like instant messenger, Snapchat, and WhatsApp. Now, this includes from parents, educators, something being amplified with current remote learning. So all these, the Generation Z that who are at present our students, they are also a generation that sees the power of working collaboratively to solve the world's biggest challenges. They are the ones who came up with, if you remember, Greta Thunberg kind of students who came forward for climate change and mental health issues. And presently, they have taken upon themselves the responsibility to self isolate to protect the older members of the community. This is happening everywhere in the world. Another generation that we would be dealing with would be Generation Alpha. They are the children of the millennials. They are right now 0 to 18, and most racially diverse generations across the world, because they are born out of intermingling of various races of the world. Then technology is simply an extension of their own consciousness and identity, and with social media being a way of life with these. these young preschoolers are also the generation with the most non-traditional family structures, because their parents are those bulldozer parents who would remove any obstacle from their, you know, life of their children, and they are overprotective. Then generation alpha is at that point possibly oblivious to the impact of the global pandemic on their education, but they are definitely going to be the ones who are going to, in the years to come, uh, this change that we bring about is going to change their lives also. So these are our target audiences. And very interestingly, there's a study that shows that job roles of generation Z and generation alpha, according to Dell Technologies report, 85% of the jobs in 2030 that generation Z and alpha will enter into will not have been invented yet. They are on the way, which means that things are going to change drastically. The job roles are going to change drastically. And according to this World Economic Forum report, 65% of primary school children today will be working in job types that do not exist as yet. So we are educating the children who are going to enter into a very, very dynamic world. So uh, as teachers of English, I think we have a very safe area to tread on, because uh, our purpose is to facilitate the communication and to enable our children to communicate better and communicate globally. Whereas the other, you know, the people who are in the other trades like science and technology, I don't know, uh, reading this report, what will be their reactions? Now, education will COVID-19 will change the world, and it has to change the education also. What are the changes? What are the lessons that we have to learn? Is the interconnectedness. It is a this pandemic. If you remember, Zizek also spoke about it a few days back in his book Pandemic. He says that this is going to connect people together. Okay, so we just realize that how interconnected we are. We cannot imagine that if something happens in one part of the world, the rest of the world will remain unaffected. So we are, in a way, what we term as the Vasudev Kutumbakam in the right sense of the word. Then redefine the role of educator. Of course, we education is going to be very, very different. We are the facilitators. We've been talking about it, we've been saying it, but then we now actually have to experientially, practically get into it. And uh, you know, the way it was earlier, that the educator was the knowledge holder who was imparting wisdom to the teachers, it's no longer fit in the 21st century. It's actually uh, this post COVID 21st century is more defined 21st century, as I would say. The students uh, have access to all kinds of knowledge portals, and they have better technical skills than us. So with a few clicks on their phones and on their gadgets, on their tablets, on their computers, we will have to redefine our roles in the classroom or the lecture theater or wherever we are. We are more of facilitators than somebody who knows everything. Then teaching life skills will become a very, very important part. Here again, the English teaching comes, handy. Somebody was talking about the role of literature in, language learning, and they were saying that it is the best site for. It is said that language is the best site for. Literature is the best site for language. Literature, I would say, is the best site for understanding human nature, for combating, for learning life skills also. So as language teachers, we must rely a lot on literature. We should select good pieces of literature, and we should continue to use them in our day-to-day, teaching lessons. Then is unlocking technology. We are all aware that we have to unlock technology. Now, teaching English in this post COVID 19 times, there's something which I really want to emphasize here is that why English has become more important in the post COVID world is because, as lingua franca, we will, if we educate our children well in this language, if they earn the proficiency over this language, I'm sure at this moment, they definitely will have an edge above others. Communication is going to define the success of the students. I did a study on the startups and the role of English language, the knowledge of how it helped the students. Those who knew the language well were performing better because they had, it is associated with a lot of things, with better confidence, with better ability to communicate, with better ability to communicate with a lot of, with a larger audience. uh, so as an educator, what is it, what are the few things, those were, I had talked about a perspective. What were the perspective? The perspective is that we have to understand that we are entering the new world, and this, that world is very different from the previous one. So there is, just as people said that there was one pre-Marx world and the post-Marx world, so similarly there is one pre-corona world and there is this post-corona world. These worlds are very, very different. The I mean, earlier we understand it, the better it is. So as English teachers, which are the, what are the things that we can do? Somebody was saying that we are only talking about methodologies. I'm sorry, I'm also only going to talk about the methodology or the things that we can use. So selection of the right tools, the right equipment, we must select a computer, a laptop or tablet with webcam, headset if background noise is an issue, and platform on which to teach live lessons, and then means of communicating with students asynchronously, whether we want to use emails or we want to use WhatsApp or whatever we want to use to manage homework assignments and questions, etc. So we have to first select our tools. The right tool for us would be the one that we understand, and as I've already talked about generation Z, we can take them into confidence and learn something from them and then give it back to them, you know. Then choosing the right kind of platform where the student and teacher can hear and see each other. Teaching and learning is a very, very it's a personalized kind of an experience. The kind of world that we have lived in up till now is that the human connection is very important. The eye connection is very important. The aura is very important. So we are used to that kind of a thing. So we will have to find out a platform where at least we can see each other, and a hands up feature, which of course Zoom has, ability to mute a student, or a chat box, interactive whiteboard, share screen, breakout rooms that allow group work. Zoom has it. And then I'm going to share with you the platforms which deal which have all these kind of features. These Some of the platforms are these are the Skype, but it doesn't have whiteboard board or the breakout rooms. Zoom has all the features, free, but has time limitation which can be upgraded. Then Adobe Connect is there. It has more features to it, but it is paid. But you can apply this. You know, there is the 30 days time period for which you can use it, and then you can decide whether you want to pay for it or not. Then WizIQ paid, but it has more features. Then you can take those free trials and invest on the best, and select a channel and take tutorials and try with family or friends before going professionally. Then asynchronous platforms, one-to-one communication or small group communication takes place in WhatsApp groups or emails or Slack. If you want to set up assignments, have asynchronous discussions, quizzes, then use ELMS, which your college must be or your institution must be having, which is a e-learning management system, which is in which all the students and the teachers are registered, and it's a personalized kind of thing. Or Adomo or Google Classroom, you can use all these platforms for creating the experience, which can never actually substitute for your presence, but at least which can be of great help and make you feel more comfortable and your students more comfortable with you. Then there are a few tools which I am going to discuss with you. Padlet, if you have heard of it, is an online virtual bulletin board where students and teachers can collaborate, they can reflect, they can share links and pictures in a secure location. And Padlet allows users to create a hidden wall with a custom URL. It is at www.padlet.com. looks something like this. There is that, you can see that English language paper, you can just be a part of it and you can add your students to it and you can share. This is the kind of board that it provides to you. Flipgrid is another, we used to have flip classroom where we would tell the students to watch a video or to watch a movie and then come back to us and discuss. So it was like, the students would be at home, they would be watching some video, they would be listening to some audio, and then they would come to the class and discuss. The Flipgrid is something to substitute that kind of thing. It is a website that allows the teachers to create grids and to facilitate the video discussion. So you can post your video and the students can post their videos in response. Uh, and they can pose questions. They are called topics, and the students can pose their video responses. This is flipgrid.com, and it looks something like this. So it has empower every voice. It's very important that this can be used. Then is Actively Learn. I have personally used some of these tools during the lockdown, because we closed on 14th of March. Students stopped coming to the colleges, and we stopped going to the colleges from 21st of March. And after that, we have used some of these platforms efficiently and effectively to teach our students, but with the hope that we will go and meet them personally. So Actively Learn is another platform, an award-winning online curriculum platform that drives equity and engagement through deeper learning. You can add questions or notes to the articles on a website. They give you articles, then you can add your notes and you can share the link with your students, and the students can then respond there. I'll show you how it looks like. It's something like this, like, there's this lecture on Othello, so you just click on it and then you can post, you can send the link to your students, they can post answers, you can read. So this is because this is something that keeps them engaged. This is something which and you'll have to use a variety of platforms to keep your students engaged, because we know that in a class is never boring, because you are never the same person who's going into the class. You're always new. So similarly, when it comes to these platforms, to break the monotony of the platforms, you'll have to choose a mix and match. As one single platform is going to wear them out, no matter what it is, which one it is. It might be the best one, but it is definitely going to wear them out. Another platform is Quizlet. This is vocabulary building exercises are there and grammar exercises are there. The flashcards are used. It is www.quizlet.com. You can use this with your students. So this is what it looks like. You can have a account here, and these are the words, and there are all kinds of grammar exercises also available there, and the students can use the flashcards and you can teach them through this platform. This is something which is very interesting, which is called Storybird. You can create beautiful stories with art form and present anonymously online. This is excellent app for enhancing writing skills. And you can see these you know this is what it looks like, and it has a place for educators, for parents, for students. People can go it, they can just express themselves. So when you're looking at enhancing the writing skills of the students to creative writing and whatever it is, so they can write down and you can share uh, stuff with either anonymously or with your name also. Of course, Whitebird is a part of this Zoom also, so you can make use of this. It is, when you're teaching, it's the same, it plays the same role that your board plays in your classroom. You can make use of this. And if the platform that you're using is not using the whiteboard, it doesn't have, you can get it from free for free from some other website. Then there are tasks that can be challenging, as the students are way beyond and one cannot physically see what they're writing. So you can use the chat box for the same. Being in the class and being not in the class is there are two different things. So students can, in particularly in my part of the world, I always say that there are only few students who come to the class. The others are sent. The parents send them to the college or to the school. So it is very difficult to hold their attention and to make them study, or I wonder why we make them study in the first place. They should be mature enough to study them by themselves, but we cannot expect this kind of maturity from them, or the students will have to now become mature, I guess. So now feedback on tasks can be an advantage of online classes, that you can simultaneously ask all of them to write answers in chat box and you can check them immediately. You can get your immediate feedback, which of course you will not get in a classroom. But then the way our students have been wired, the way we have been teaching them, and the way they are used to being taught, um, these kind of things, would come with the passage of time, uh, not so soon and not so early. Because when I was teaching, when I was taking classes with my, when I started taking online classes, the first thing was, half of them, I don't know what made them giggle. Half of them were giggling all the time. So it makes you feel so uncomfortable being there. You can see them, they are on mute and they're looking here and there. You don't know in what kind of environment you have entered into. So it's a bit unnerving for you also as a teacher, but then we'll have to overcome all those inhibitions. Whole class discussions is a bit tricky, but give you have to give your time after you ask them questions to cover up the time lag. And students can use hands up feature the way Motikala ma'am had been using. So I'm sure all of you are aware of all these things. Then pair and group work, Motikala ma'am also mentioned this. Breakout rooms are there. You can create pairs and groups, and one can, uh, you can create the pairs. You can do it, but then it takes time. Or you can just randomly do it. Then what will happen is that the when you do it randomly, you may not get the kind of pair that you want. If you want two particular students, they would be randomly chosen and they will be grouped. So then you can visit each and every breakout room and see what is happening in each room, but then the other rooms are not visible to you. Now in case this feature is not available on your platform, then you can use Padlet, which will give you, where you can pin up your uh, you can use or share at the same time. Many of them can share on the same platform. You can play audio and video. We know that it is there on Zoom, it is there on Skype. You can do it. You can connect uh, uh, other apps. You'll have to paste the link and send it to your students, or you can send your own audio, your own video, or maybe just as I recorded a part of Motikala ma'am's lecture, you can send this to your students. Then you can share your materials. Whiteboard can be used, of course. Email, WhatsApp, and other platforms that are there available to you. Email is the best for assignments also. uh, Teacher talk is that, like, one-to-one talk should be kept at the minimum, because uh, virtually, when I'm talking, for example, it should be kept for the question answer sessions also. Rest of the lesson should be planned in such a way that you don't really have to do the talking all the time. They can, like, refer to the things, which is uh, because uh, right now there is this presentation which is on your screen. So this is more, this kind of is more comprehensible than me speaking. Or maybe, you may not hear me properly, but then at least you can read what is being presented to you on your screen. uh, you have to make a judicious and selective use of whatever tools you use, uh, and explore the new tools to keep the students engaged. Gauge the interest of the students and use the tools as per your teaching goals. For example, I teach in a college where a lot of rural students also come. We had this issue in our university. They wanted to hold online examination. So we asked them, like, the students come from places where the internet facility is not there as of now, not properly there. It is there, but then uh, not to the extent that they can uh, use or write exams. Okay. And some of them don't have computers. Some of them, they might be having phones. They can use their phones for interacting with us, but they don't have computers. So in our part of the world, a lot of uh, technological advancement is required. The government has to take a lot of initiatives to enable teaching, this kind of teaching that we are aiming at. Otherwise we will be not doing justice to the students of our country. We will be restricting ourselves only to the elite, which is not our purpose. If we really want to reach out to the students who really want to study, then we'll have to uh, change our the government has to put in its efforts, their efforts. So this is the kind of classroom that I envisage in at least for near future. And I hope that we come back to the normal classrooms very soon. And stay home, stay happy, stay safe. Thank you so much. And I'll stop sharing my. Uh,
Thank you so much, Professor Ramnita Sarda ma'am, for your wonderful presentation. And possibly, it's the situation. It's a kind of prediction of the situation, and that may occur tomorrow, the days to come. So wonderful sharing. And dear friends, if you have any queries, the floor is open for you. Any questions? Any question, please? Okay, I think Rajendra Baral sir has a question, and let me unmute Rajendra sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening. Good evening, sir, ma'am.
Good evening, sir.
Ma'am, thank you for your wonderful ideas that you shared very recently, and they are very, very practical, very useful, and very insightful for we teachers and maybe for the students also. I'm really very much impressed by both presentations of MEMS today afternoon. So my query is not that big. Maybe I'm also a bit confused regarding these two terms. You made us very familiar with new normal. I'm really very impressed by that, because I have been hearing these terms, or let's say phrases now during this pandemic pandemic situation. So my query is there any difference between flipped grid and flipped classroom or something like that? So I'm a bit confused regarding these two terms. So could you just briefly explain?
Yeah, okay. So flip grid is basically that you post a video and the students post a video in response to that. Okay.
Uh,
And
okay.
flipped classroom is that when you tell them to come prepared with something, you give them a task and then they come, which means that your classroom has actually, you have taught on video, but the classroom is your discussion portal now.
Okay.
Okay. So this is that fish bowl method, the flip. These were the pedagogies that we were pedagogical techniques that we used in our classes. So to substitute them, flip grid would work something like that. That you post a video, the students will post their own videos.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. So any others? Any others?
DN sir,
Okay,
I have
sir,
one.
please.
I have already put my question in a chat box.
Okay, please, you ask, sir.
Okay.
No, yeah, hello.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that Mr. Gunraj?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes,
And
I already mentioned it that when we talk about rural students, we will be doing great injustice to them if we do not if the government does not take the technology to their homes. It is not the task of the teacher to take the technology to the villages. It is the task of the governments, right? So we would be doing a great injustice to them, and this is precisely what we stood up for when it came to taking online exams of our students in our university. We stood up for them and we said to them that those students would be in trouble, because otherwise there was no, you see, how could we have reached them? Some of the students do not even, they're so poor, they do not even have WhatsApp. They don't have those phones, smartphones, right? What to talk of these computers and laptops. So I did mention it towards the end of it, that technology has to reach the last person on the in the country. Only then this kind of education is possible. But the governments now have to do it fast. In Punjab, they had announced that they would be giving tablets to all the students who do their +2 exam. The government had been announcing these schemes, but as the governments behave, they announce things and they don't do it. But yes, I agree
So,
to you. You are
uh, uh,
100% right that this is a kind of education which will be then restricted only to the elite. I wound up my discussion with this only, that yes, we have to take into cognizance the rural people also, the poor also. That is where the education has to reach in the first place.
Ma'am, a little bit more. What I was expecting is, you gave us a lot of resources and tools which are within the reach of urban students. And, taking technology to rural students is not possible overnight. And we say, as teachers and teacher educators say that it is a government task, it's a government responsibility. But that too takes time. So for the time being, for a short period of time, what do you think we can do to address the needs and expectation of those students who are not in the mainstream, those students who do not have the reach, to assess, these kind of tools and resources? That was my concern. Of course, we as teachers cannot do, but government also takes a lot of time to reach out to them. So within this transitional phase of crisis and difficulties, what do you think teachers can do to meet the voice? As you showed in one of your slide, that empower, everyone's voice, empower
I
every voice. So
All
that
right.
made me reflect on, because a lot of issues are quite identical, similar to what you experienced there in India and what we have been experiencing in our country. So would you please highlight a little more on social kinds of responsibility that we as teachers or teacher educators can do to meet those students who are not in the mainstream?
All right. So what actually can be done and what has been done, what we tried to do here is that at the panchayat level, we gave one computer from the college, or we arranged the philanthropist to donate one computer to them. But then the number of students in a village is more, and the number of students who want to get educated is more. You see, this pandemic nobody had envisaged. From till March 14th, we were not even aware that whether India is going to go into lockdown or not. Okay, this is something which is new for everyone. It is something which is new for the whole world. This crisis is not something which was envisaged. It is not. It is something which has just happened all of a sudden. And yes, the with physical distancing as one of the protocols, the teachers cannot do much. I cannot, in the lockdown, I will not go out of my house. If I go out of my house, I will be putting in danger so many lives, right? I will be putting
It's
under pressure the government also, the entire health system. I will be disobeying the law. I will not do that. So it is, I am doing my response. What can we do about the students who are residing in the rural areas at this moment? I have no answer for that, because if this technology does not, if technology reaches them, then my job begins. I will make sure that I educate them to use the technology, but I cannot make the technology reach them. I can ask the government to do that, which we are doing. Okay, so the panchayats are, they have. I live in part of that part of the country where the people in villages are far more richer than the people living in the urban areas. But then in my country only, there are areas, there are states, there are other states where the people do not have access even to the basic life amenities, even to their 2 square meals. Talking about this kind of education for them is impossible, but then they are not coming to the colleges. That is also there.
Okay, fine.
They
So
are, yes.
that's some sort of consolation for us, because we are also worried, you know.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Gunaraj sir. Now I think Chetnath Panta sir. Chet sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insightful sharing. Uh, just before uh, you just share your thoughts. So my question here is, there is confusion and chaos everywhere, and students are in a kind of trauma. They are suffering a lot, and all the citizens of the country, particularly in case of our country also, we are suffering. Education system is suffering due to lack of emergency plan of the government. So it's not time to blame anyone. We all are responsible anyway. So at this juncture, education system is heading towards uncharted destination. So we are having kind of we are putting everything in a basket. My point here is, at this time of uncertainty, how can we ensure access and equity?
You see, one cannot ensure access and equity in any given time. This is, you let alone pandemic. Hierarchy, equity is, is the ideal situation. That is something that we look towards. That is something which is our goal. I do not read such news about your country, but in my country, people are walking distances. The buses are not plying, the trains are not plying, and
Yes.
people are walking miles and miles with their families, and they're dying on the roads, they're dying on the on the railway tracks, which is very sad.
Yes.
In these times, when I talk of equity, I'll just be a hypocrite. I'm not.
My point is, they are also the citizens of the country, so they should
Yes,
also
they
get the
are.
chance. Right?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. It is so sad. I mean, but then again, when I think about that, I the only thing that gives me some sanity is that the whole world is facing this situation for the first time.
Yes.
No one has an experience. Everybody is experimenting.
Yes.
We don't
Yes.
have a cure. We don't have a cure as of now. We don't know what to do. The economy is going down. We have no solutions for that. The whole world is facing it. So to expect that the government should decide something, and
Yes.
they are doing their best. I am not blaming the government also, because they are not experienced in this. They haven't faced it earlier. Nobody has faced it earlier.
Yes.
That is the only tragedy, and we can only